The world of American muscle cars is filled with glory stories. Powerful engines, iconic designs, and quarter-mile dominance. But for every Shelby GT 500 or Hemi Cuda that dominated the streets, there were muscle cars that got everything wrong. These mechanical misfits were so terrible that they somehow looped back around to become legendary, not for their greatness, but for their spectacular failures. Today we look at 8 muscle cars that were so bad, they became the stuff of automotive legend. 1. The 1982 Chevrolet Camaro Iron Duke. The Camaro name had long been synonymous with performance, but the third-generation Camaro that debuted in 1982 offered something that shocked muscle car enthusiasts. A 4-cylinder base engine called the Iron Duke. While higher trim Camaros still packed V8 power, the base model came equipped with a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder that produced an embarrassing 90 horsepower. This pathetic power output gave the Iron Duke Camaro a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of around 20 seconds, slower than many economy cars of the era. At 2,864 pounds, the Iron Duke Camaro had a worse power-to-weight ratio than the Chevrolet Chevette, an economy car nobody would ever mistake for a performance vehicle. The Iron Duke engine itself wasn't inherently terrible. It was reliable and fuel-efficient, serving in various GM vehicles for 16 years. The problem was putting it in a Camaro, a car synonymous with performance. The disconnect between the sporty, aerodynamic styling of the new Camaro and its painfully slow acceleration created automotive whiplash. Despite this performance embarrassment, the third-generation Camaro eventually redeemed itself with the later IROC Z and ZEG28 models. But the Iron Duke version remains legendary as possibly the slowest American muscle car ever built, a perfect symbol of how far performance fell during the early 1980s. 2. The 1974 Ford Mustang II. The Ford Mustang revolutionized the automotive industry when it launched in 1964, creating the pony car segment and becoming an instant icon. 10 years later, Ford introduced the Mustang II, a car that seemed to betray everything the original stood for. Based on the compact Ford Pinto platform, the Mustang II was significantly smaller and lighter than its predecessor. But what really shocked muscle car enthusiasts was the complete lack of a V8 engine option during its first year. The most powerful engine available was a 2.8-liter V6, producing just 105 horsepower. The timing couldn't have been worse for muscle car fans, but oddly perfect for Ford's bottom line. The 1973 oil crisis hit just as the Mustang II launched, and suddenly fuel economy became more important than horsepower. Despite enthusiasts' horror, the Mustang II was actually a massive sales success, selling nearly 386,000 units in its first year. In 1975, Ford finally added a 5.0-liter V8 option. But even this performance engine made only 140 horsepower, a far cry from the muscle cars of the previous decade. The Mustang II's styling, with its opera windows and vinyl roofs on Ghia models, leaned more toward personal luxury than muscle car aggression. Despite being maligned by enthusiasts, the Mustang II actually saved the nameplate from extinction during the fuel crisis, without it bridging the gap to the more respected Fox body Mustang in 1979, the iconic pony car might not have survived. That makes the Mustang II a terrible muscle car that paradoxically preserved muscle car history. 3. The 1980 Mercury Capri RS Turbo. The Mercury Capri began life as a European import, but by 1979, It had evolved into essentially a rebadged Fox body Mustang with some unique styling touches. In 1980, Mercury attempted to create a performance version with the Capri RS Turbo. On paper, the Capri RS Turbo sounded promising. It featured a turbocharged 2.3-liter, four-cylinder engine rated at 132 horsepower, distinctive front-end styling, and sporty-looking RS graphics. In reality, the engine suffered from terrible turbo lag, drivability problems, and abysmal reliability. The turbo engines were plagued with issues: blown head gaskets, overheating problems, and a tendency to stall unexpectedly. Many owners reported that the car would hesitate terribly when the turbo kicked in, making everyday driving an exercise in frustration. What makes the Capri RS truly legendary in its badness was that it looked like a performance car, but delivered disappointment at every level. The aggressive styling and turbo RS graphics wrote checks that the powertrain simply couldn't cash. Today, surviving examples are rare, partly because so many succumbed to mechanical failures. Fourth, the 1971 to 1977 Chevrolet Vega. While not always considered a muscle car in the traditional sense, Chevrolet did produce performance versions of the Vega, including the Cosworth Vega with its DOHC engine. However, all Vegas, performance models included, shared a fatal flaw. They were engineering disasters. The Vega's aluminum engine block lacked proper cylinder liners, leading to rapid wear, warping, and catastrophic failures. Early models didn't even have a coolant recovery system, causing engines to overheat regularly. If the engine didn't fail, the body would. Vegas were notorious for rusting so quickly that some began showing rust spots while still on dealer lots. The Vega's development was rushed by GM President Ed Cole, and the car was pushed into production before proper testing was completed. Even John DeLorean, then Chevrolet's general manager, noted in his book that there was internal resistance to the Vega at Chevrolet, as it was designed primarily by corporate engineering staff rather than division engineers. Despite these serious problems, Chevrolet sold over 2 million Vegas before production ended. The Cosworth Vega, meant to be a performance flagship, suffered from the same underlying issues while costing twice as much as a standard Vega. Today, the Vega is legendary for how thoroughly its promising design was undermined by poor execution. 5. The 1978 Ford Mustang II King Cobra. Ford attempted to inject some performance credibility back into the Mustang II lineup with the 1978 King Cobra package. With its Cobra decal on the hood, bright graphics and spoilers, it certainly looked the part of a muscle car revival. Unfortunately, the King Cobra was all show and barely any go. Its 5.0-liter V8 produced just 139 horsepower and was paired with a sluggish 3-speed automatic transmission in most examples. This resulted in 0 to 60 miles per hour times of around 10 seconds. Quick by late 70s standards, but glacial compared to the muscle cars of the past. What makes the King Cobra legendary among bad muscle cars was its bombastic appearance paired with mediocre performance. The massive Cobra decal on the hood, the color-keyed wheels, and the spoilers all suggested serious performance that simply wasn't there. It was the automotive equivalent of all hat and no cattle. The King Cobra lasted for just one model year, with only 4,313 units produced. Today, its rarity and status as the ultimate expression of late 70s automotive excess have made it a collectible, with prices rising for well-preserved examples, despite, or perhaps because of, its reputation. 6. The 1980 Chevrolet Monza Spyder Pontiac Sunbird Formula. General Motors H-body compacts of the late 1970s and early 1980s including the Chevrolet Monza and Pontiac Sunbird, offered performance packages that attempted to recapture muscle car glory with sporty looks but delivered anything but muscle car performance. The Monza Spider and Sunbird formula packages added spoilers, stripes, and sport suspensions. But under the hood, the most powerful engine available was a 3.8-liter V6, making just 115 horsepower. Some were even equipped with the infamous Iron Duke four-cylinder, the same 90-horsepower engine that later disgraced the Camaro. These cars suffered from poor build quality, with interiors that rattled and squeaked over every bump. Reliability was abysmal, with everything from electrical problems to cooling system failures plaguing owners. What makes these cars legendary is how they represented the depths to which muscle car performance had fallen. Their sporty looks and performance-oriented names like Spider and Formula harked back to a glorious past, while their actual performance pointed to a dismal present. 7. The 1976 Plymouth Volare Roadrunner. The Roadrunner name had once graced one of the purest muscle cars ever built, a no-frills Plymouth designed specifically for straight-line speed. By 1976, the Roadrunner package was applied to the Plymouth Volare, a mid-sized car better known for being practical than powerful. The 76 Roadrunner came with the choice of a 318 cubic inch V8 making 150 horsepower, or a 360 cubic inch V8 with 170 horsepower. A far cry from the 425 horsepower 426 Hemi that powered Roadrunners in the late 1960s. Performance was mediocre at best, with 0 to 60 times over 10 seconds. What makes this Roadrunner remarkable is how thoroughly it watered down a legendary performance nameplate. With its cartoonish Roadrunner decals plastered on what was essentially a family car, it represented how far muscle cars had fallen from their heyday just a few years earlier. The Volare itself became notorious for quality problems, from premature rusting to reliability issues, making the Roadrunner version a double disappointment, neither well-built nor particularly fast. Today, these cars are rare, not because they were limited production, but because so few survived their quality issues. 8. The 1999 Mercury Cougar. By the late 1990s, muscle cars were making a comeback, with cars like the Mustang GT and Camaro Z28 offering respectable power once again. The Mercury Cougar, once a respected muscle car in its own right, took a different path for its final generation. The 1999 Mercury Cougar abandoned its rear-wheel drive V8 heritage completely, becoming a front-wheel drive sport compact based on the Ford Contour Mondeo platform. The most powerful engine available was a 2.5-liter V6 producing just 170 horsepower. The new Cougar's styling was modern and European-inspired, a complete departure from traditional muscle car aesthetics. Performance was adequate for a compact car, but fell far short of what muscle car enthusiasts expected from the Cougar name. What makes the 1999 Cougar legendary among bad muscle cars is that it completely abandoned the formula that made muscle cars special: rear-wheel drive, V8 power, and American styling. It was the ultimate example of how far a muscle car nameplate could stray from its roots. Mercury discontinued the Cougar in 2002, and the brand itself followed in 2011. The front-wheel drive Cougar remains a symbol of how automotive nameplates can lose their identity entirely, a cautionary tale for automakers considering radical reinventions of established performance models. These 8 muscle cars represent the dark ages of American performance, when emissions regulations, fuel economy concerns, and corporate cost-cutting transformed legendary nameplates into shadows of their former selves. Yet their very awfulness has made them fascinating time capsules. Perfect windows into an era when the muscle car nearly died out completely. Today, with 700-plus horsepower Hellcats and 460-plus horsepower Mustang GTs easily available, it's hard to imagine a time when a 90-horsepower Camaro or a 139-horsepower King Cobra Mustang represented performance variance. That's what makes these terrible muscle cars so legendary. They survived the industry's darkest days to keep the flame alive, however dimly, until technology could catch up and true muscle cars could return. Love them or hate them, these 8 automotive misfits deserve recognition, not for how good they were, but for how bad they were, and for somehow becoming collectible classics, despite or because of their many flaws.